Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. Before we get to all the actual podcastal stuff, a quick reminder that this is a crowdsourced Zoo News program. So if you would like to contribute, you can go ahead and send me stories that you think would be interesting. Either email them to rossifaripod@gmail.com or tag me in them at Rossifari on the socials, at RossifariPod on the TikTok machine, and I'll say your name at the end of the episode. Make sure you're following along, hit subscribe, follow those socials, you know, all the things. There's a Patreon, patreon.com/Rossifari, all the good stuff. Speaking of which, if you are one of my Binturong or Red Panda level patrons and you haven't gotten your sticker for April yet, no worries. Laura, our good friend, the artist at the Cappy Trails, unfortunately lost her cat earlier this month, and so she's a little behind. But of course, we all understand that, and I have seen the design and everything for your April sticker, and you're going to love them, so no worries. It is coming, and I know y'all understand that. All right, so I'm guessing that a lot of you are expecting this episode to start with a discussion about all of the crazy airport stuff that you might have seen me posting about on Instagram, but I'm actually not going to touch on that very much. I'm not even really going to touch on the trip that I was just on. I know last week we talked about the Tanganyika experience a little bit, and I've been to a whole bunch of other zoos and talked to a whole bunch of people, and I will get to that with y'all. We'll cover that at some point, but this episode has a lot of stuff. We've got one of these special episodes with an interview in it, and so I'm going to let a different person do a lot of the talking, and so we'll cover that stuff. But I am home safely from my trip. It was a journey to get home, but the trip itself was fantastic. And just happy to be recording at a familiar mic. And I actually am home. Goodness, I will be in my house for almost 24 hours before I head back out. So, you know, pretty normal stuff for John and pretty crazy for the rest of the world. But yeah. So, all right, with all of that said, I do have one other thing really quick that I need to tell y'all, which is that you will not be getting an episode this Tuesday, our normal Tuesday interview episode. That's because I'm going to be dropping this one on Monday. And I'm not going to say why, but there is a reason for it. And those of you who are particularly aware of why that might be, well, it'll make a lot of sense. So that's kind of the game right now. Can you figure out why I'm dropping an episode on Monday instead of Tuesday of next week? Good question. Who knows? Who can figure it out? I bet some of you can, but whether you do or not, the episode will be out on Monday, but hey, it'll still be there on Tuesday if you like to do the whole listen on Tuesday thing and, you know, there forever, because that's how this works. Okay, so with all of that said, let's get to it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Ow, that's a funky monkey, tree kangaroo, or a binturong.
It's Zoo News.
Yeah. All right. So one of the stories that y'all sent me, a whole bunch of you actually sent me, was different facilities talking about some progress that they've had in the sihek recovery program that they are working on, this conservation of this species of bird. And a bunch of different facilities posted about it because there was some pretty exciting stuff that happened this week. But rather than hear me talk about it, I'm going to share information from a person who is actually involved. So you're going to get to hear an interview here with Scott Newland of Sedgwick County Zoo. Enjoy.
My name is Scott Newland. I am CEO and president of Sedgwick County Zoo, and I'm in charge of the zoo, and I've been here for 25 years.
That's a long time. I bet you have some stories.
Yes, I started as a zookeeper and have worked my way up through the ranks here. And this is the only zoo I've ever been at.
Oh, wow. Okay. I love that. This is my first time here, and I've only seen a little bit of it so far, but loving the facility. I've been a fan through socials and stuff for a while now. So, thanks for taking the time to be here. There are two things we want to talk about today. First of all, y'all are involved in a really special conservation program I don't need to preamble it. Tell me about this.
So yeah, we're involved with the sihek recovery project. For those that aren't familiar, sihek is the native Chamorro name for a bird that has been in zoos for the last 40 years that more commonly was called the Guam kingfisher. It's only been the last few years that we have absolutely recognized that native name, and so we do refer to them as sihek now. Sihek went extinct in the wild, and that was a result of an introduced predator on the island of Guam. It is roughly believed that the brown tree snake was introduced to the island sometime after World War II, as the U.S. was resupplying the region, and it was a snake that was found naturally in Australia and New Guinea. The idea is that it stowed away on either equipment or resupply containers and got accidentally introduced onto the island of Guam. It went unnoticed for many, many years. But the brown tree snake is a nocturnal arboreal predator, and most of the birds on Guam, and similar to any islands, didn't evolve with those types of pressures. So their nests are very out in the open.
Right.
They don't have cryptically colored eggs. It was kind of a setup for disaster when you had a predator that they just had no response to. So slowly, it is believed that brown tree snakes really started to impact a lot of the endemic species on Guam. It wasn't until the late 70s that biologists on the island actually started to sound the alarm and figured out what was going on. For some of their species, it was too late. There were 13 endemic species on the island of Guam, and we lost several of those forever. A couple examples are Guam flycatcher. There was another white-eye species on Guam that is gone. But the few species that were still on the island, they tried to do this heroic effort to go out into the field, capture all of those birds, bring them in partnership with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to AZA zoos so that we could at least hang on to them until we could figure out what to do with the brown tree snake. So two species in particular, the sihek that I've already mentioned, and another bird called coco, which is the Guam rail. Those are the two species that AZA kind of answered the call that U.S. Fish and Wildlife had, and we have maintained those populations in human care since 1982-83.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yes.
That's really cool. All right. And wow, the impact of one predator. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is astonishing. And so what is the next step of all of that? So if you've kept them in human care.
Yeah, so the idea has always been this population was going to be grown to a point that when the conditions on Guam were kind of changed, I'm not going to say eliminated. I don't think we'll ever eliminate brown tree snakes again, but at least where conditions were favorable that we could try to do reintroduction back to the island. That was the idea of the captive population. Unfortunately, we've still not gotten to that point. The conditions on Guam are still pretty intense when it comes to the snake numbers. And then on top of that, you've got 40 years of development of Guam, and the natural areas that kingfishers were normally found in on Guam have changed a little bit. So there's also going to be some kind of environmental mitigation work that kind of has to go along with this. We're going to have to assess the areas that are left, make sure that they're going to be adequate to release the birds back on the island. But that is still the ultimate goal. And it's always been the goal for AZA and in our partnership with U.S. Fish and Wildlife is to get the birds back to Guam. Interestingly, though, with any reintroduction, U.S. Fish and Wildlife has a bunch of benchmarks that we have to make before they will allow us to release the birds back. And some of those are, obviously now this population has been in human care for 40 years. How are those birds going to react when they're released into the wild?
Right.
Have they been habituated to us? Do they know how to hunt? Do they know how to find the right tree cavities to nest in? So we've got a whole bunch of milestones that we knew were ahead of us before U.S. Fish and Wildlife gave us the green light to put the birds on the island. So although Guam is not ready, we can still get some of that work out of the way now so that when Guam is ready, we've got those boxes checked. So in partnership with the Nature Conservancy and IUCN, ZSL, Zoological Society of London, and a lot of our AZA partners, we 3 or 4 years ago really started down this path of trying to get birds to a surrogate island so that we could test a lot of these release methods. And that's where we are today, and that's what we have been doing. So starting in 2022, we started working on kind of the plan of how we were going to get birds out to an island, what island were we going to go to, what that whole project looks like, because it is involved.
That's fascinating. I mean, that sounds intense. So what did you choose?
So the island we chose was an island that is kind of joint managed by the Nature Conservancy and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and it's called the Palmyra Atoll. So Palmyra was a significant kind of base of operations during World War II, and a lot of the atoll was managed for military operations. After the war was over, it was kind of left abandoned, and the U.S. government still owned it. Eventually sold it to the Nature Conservancy, but U.S. Fish and Wildlife operates the refuge that surrounds the atoll. So it's an amazing place to look at a lot of the scientific questions we have out there. They do a lot of work with global warming. They do a lot of work with migratory pelagic bird species. It is really just like the paradise scientific island. They've got a research station out there. There are no snakes. So for our work, it was a perfect option to try our sihek releases, and that's where we're doing them. So in 2024, we had AZA zoos were breeding sihek and selected pairs that we picked for just their genetic place in the population. We sent any fertile eggs here to Wichita. We have a biosecure facility that we're going to show you later. And the idea is that those chicks hatch and are hand-reared in a completely clean environment so that we don't take any strange avian vectors or disease processes to Palmyra that then could be introduced to the native birds there. So we were successful last year. We sent 9 birds over. 9 sounds like a strange number, but that's actually the amount of aviary space we could construct on Palmyra.
Okay, that makes sense.
Getting people and equipment to Palmyra is very challenging. So we had to be very kind of diligent and stringent with what we sent over. But we were successful. We released 9 birds last year. And this year, we have already seen signs of not only copulation and pairing, but we just released last week that we have had our first eggs laid in the wild. And that is just the biggest news for us, and we couldn't be happier. For us, just the birds surviving a year was a huge milestone. But the fact that they've already paired off and that they're already starting to go through the motions of breeding is just amazing.
That's insane. That's amazing. And so those are the first eggs that this species has had in the wild in 40 some years, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's insane. That's amazing.
If you look through the literature and trust us, we have dug through it all. Those photos that you have seen could very well be the photos of wild eggs that we've ever had. And kingfishers nest in a tree and they nest up pretty high. So access to those nests are very difficult, but with some skilled ladder work and kind of an assist from a boroscope, we were able to check those nests, and it'll just add more data to our study.
That's absolutely incredible. Congrats.
Thank you.
It's huge. And then after that, I actually got to go and see this really cool, really small biosecure facility that is, one of the few places in the world that is like the hope for this species. And I even got to see their egg. And sihek eggs are really tiny. And just this little egg in an incubator being, part of the hope of a species was really something to see, y'all. So I'm incredibly grateful to Sedgwick County Zoo, and you will be hearing more from them down the road on the podcast a little bit. But actually, you're also going to be hearing a little bit more from Scott in this episode, because there was some bonus news that I had to share with y'all. And that actually brings us to our births for the week. Akia, one of the Diana monkeys at the Paignton Zoo, has given birth in a truly special way. Akia was diagnosed with an ovarian tumor while expecting, which can cause complications for both the mom and the baby. The veterinary team at the zoo came up with a comprehensive plan, which seems to have worked well. The baby was born healthy, mom stayed healthy throughout the pregnancy and the birth, and now that things have calmed down, the team has a procedure scheduled to address the tumor. Amazing work. The Dallas Zoo has announced the birth of a new king vulture to mom Dauphine and his dad Sid. This is the first chick for both parents, and they are being incredible parents right from the start. And that's actually not the only king vulture hatching announced this week. The Bronx Zoo also announced the birth of a chick that is being hand-reared using a puppet after mom and dad rejected it. Now, this is the same type of puppet that is used to rear California and Andean condor chicks for reintroductions into the wild. And interestingly enough, the Bronx Zoo was the first facility to pioneer the use of puppets for Andean condor chicks more than 40 years ago. Nice to see that is still working so effectively. A new Maasai giraffe calf, or girlet, was born at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park recently. Now, as is often the case, the baby was born on its habitat, and it popped out standing up and just kind of being a little giraffe, because that's what they do. So you can actually see the little one if you visit the park out in their cool safari tram area. Side note, I really miss San Diego and the safari park. It has been way too long since I've been out there. And yes, I realize that I am coming back from an insanely long, insanely good zoo trip and whinging about the fact that I am not out in San Diego, but I stand by it. Anyway, 3 Komodo dragons have been born at Australia Zoo. The parents, Lagertha and Ragnar, have been partnered with other dragons on breeding attempts before, but neither were successful. However, this pairing worked out with 3 new dragons being born. Insert Game of Thrones reference here. You can make up your own. I don't feel like being creative right now. Very tired. Anyway, the Maryland Zoo has announced the birth of a Cockerell's Shifak lemur. Congrats to the team. And, speaking of lemurs, Allagash, a 12-year-old ringtail lemur, is currently serving as the mother of 3 babies. But they aren't all hers. Allagash's sister, Rogue, gave birth on the same day as Allagash, but when the conspiracy, which is what a group of lemurs is called, started chasing each other around, Rogue was separated from her offspring, and when staff tried to reunite them, Rogue rejected the little one. So the staff presented the baby to Allagash, who readily accepted it in a beautiful way, and she is now raising all 3 babies. The relationship between Rogue and Allagash seems to be fine, with Rogue grooming Allagash and regular calm interactions being observed. Such cool births, and also just such a cool story straight out of Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. And then for our last birth announcement, well, we're going to bring Scott Newland back to tell you a pretty cool story. I really love this one, y'all. Y'all are having some baby elephant stuff going on. And Zoe and I were fortunate enough to, as we rolled in this morning, get to see one of the babies. And I'm hoping that throughout the day we'll get to see the other one. But so, yeah, let's talk elephants. And there's a special maternal thing that's happening right now that I'd love you to talk about.
Yes. So within our elephant herd, starting 2024, we had 5 pregnant elephants. And all of our females were brought in from a import from the country of Eswatini, and they came to us in 2016. And so we took a couple years kind of getting them used to being in human care and getting used to us. Eventually, we knew the plan was to try to breed them for the AZA population. And we brought in another bull from Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo. His name is Callie. And Callie's a great bull and did his job well and resulted in the 5 pregnant females. Starting 24, we were very excited, but very nervous. So we had our first mom that was due. Her name is Simunye, and she is actually our only experienced female of that group. When we brought the elephants in from an import, she actually had her last calf still with her. And his name is Titan. And Titan has now moved to the Atlanta Zoo to be part of another breeding group. But we were very excited that she was first because the idea was that she was going to have her calf and be able to kind of teach the new and inexperienced moms how to be a mother elephant. Unfortunately, Simunye did, her calf was stillborn, and which was very unexpected to us and really kind of deflated us at first. But we knew we had 4 more females that we had to focus on. So the team really rallied kind of behind that tragedy and put our efforts into the next 2 expecting moms that were in sequence. So when Talia, the second mother that gave birth here at Sedgwick County Zoo, had her calf, whose name is Bomani, we started to see some really interesting behaviors come out of Simunye. Simunye was not only protective of Talia, but she was very protective of the calf. And we did see interesting behaviors from her, where if Talia wasn't necessarily doing something completely right, Simunye would kind of guide her into the right way to do the things she needed to do. As that relationship grew, and Bomani's first few days here, we really started seeing that Simunye would allow Bomani to be with her, would allow Bomani to nurse with her. And to this point, Talia and Simunye are kind of allo-parenting Bomani together, which is something that you do see in the wild in elephants. Sources that I have read point to that's kind of indicative of the relationship with the mothers. So if mothers are comfortable with each other and have strong bonds, they will help take care of each other's calves. So it's been very beneficial to Talia. It's been very beneficial to our staff because it's like they have a keeper in the herd that speaks the language and knows what to do. And so it's been an amazing process to watch. And I think Bomani's, growing and developing actually better because he's got kind of 2 influences in the herd. And our third baby that has just been born a few days after Bomani, his name is Kajani. His mom, whose name is Zolani, does not get along so well, let's say, with Simunye. So although she is not aggressive to her or to the calf, there's an obvious difference you can see their relationship affects Simunye's kind of relationship with the second calf. So there's a lot of moving pieces going on with our herd right now. And then you add into the fact that we're going to have maybe hopefully 3 and 4 on the ground before the summer ends. There's a lot of moving pieces down there in the herd right now and a lot of things for our staff to adjust to.
Yeah, 4 baby elephants is so many baby elephants.
Yes.
That's crazy. I love that. But I also love, having gone down to the elephant habitat and everything and seeing this, like, you have so much room. And I saw that it's set up in such a beautiful way where you could separate, if necessary, with conflicts or with babies having medical issues or anything like that. And I think that's something that I've noticed is it seems like the AZA is moving away from having a bunch of the smaller facilities having like 2 or 3 elephants. And it's really becoming more big facilities that are willing to put in the time and effort and construction and all of that stuff to have setups like that. Like as I was walking around that yard, I was blown away. And at one point I was like, I can't even see like the whole yard, like where I was standing, I could not see everything. And I thought that was awesome to see. So yeah, I'm excited to see that a place like here is the place that is going to have 4 elephant calves, because that's a lot.
Yes, it absolutely is. And that was a very interesting decision years ago by the director at the time, Mark Reed. We were at a place, we had just 2 elephants, like most zoos had. We had 2 older females that came to us in the early 70s as very young animals. They grew up here at Sedgwick County Zoo. This was the only home they'd ever known. But rightly so, as animal care standards changed, we had to change with those standards. So we had a decision to make. And the decision was simple. We either were going to invest in elephants here for our future, or we were going to get out of elephants. And a lot of zoos across AZA have had to make that same choice. And we were lucky that within this community and within our partnership with the county, we were able to pull off the exhibit that you saw and really decide that we were going to go all in, not only with elephants here for our zoo and our community, but for the greater AZA as well. Over the last 3 years, the AZA Elephant Tag has done a lot of work to install a real paradigm shift in how we are looking at elephants for the future and the care of elephants and how we make better choices for them when it comes to exhibit design or population management. And I think you're going to see a lot more to the example you used, where zoos will decide either to get out of elephants or to go all in. Mm-hmm. And there'll be fewer elephant facilities, but those facilities will be much better able to meet the needs of the animals, and we'll have success for the future through those decisions.
Yeah, no, I've noticed that. I know LA Zoo announced yesterday that their elephants will be leaving, the 2 that they have. And having been there, I love the zoo. They were doing great with their animals, but that's probably the right call, unless they want to make that huge investment again, which is a challenging investment.
Yeah.
And so I love that they're doing that. And then there are places, Cincy just opened their big new elephant habitat. Columbus just announced they're expanding there. So yeah, I really think that's the trend, and I love it. Oh my gosh, 4. I can't wait to come back. We've already talked about this. I'll be back, and once all the babies are here, we're going to come check them out and go cuddle out. Just kidding. We don't cuddle elephants. But I am looking forward to seeing 4 baby elephants.
Yeah, we are too. And our public has went on this journey with us. Obviously, through your business, you see what our social media does, and we've really tried to tell the story. We tried to be as transparent as we can. Obviously, when we lost Simunye's calf, that was a huge hit, but we shared that story with everybody. Mm-hmm. And our public, our supporters are so invested in this zoo that we just don't really see any other way to do communication with them. We want them to walk with us on these journeys, whether they're tough or perfect. It's our everyday life out here, and they've been so supportive of us. We want them to share in that story as well.
Yeah, I love that. Transparency is everything, and something I'm really proud to be able to provide is like this inside outsider kind of thing, But yeah,
especially elephant people, like the detractors are just going to be detractors. They're going to be loud. They're going to be annoying. I've had death threats because I played drums with an elephant, at Buttonwood Park Zoo, and literal had to get police involved in one case. And that's just going to exist. But if we tell the stories and tell the good work, then hopefully anyone who's on the fence or anyone who is invested can just feel that ownership. And you just have to let the other people, they're just going to exist, and you have to learn to ignore it, which I'm almost starting to do effectively. It is a very big struggle. Honestly, being on social media, I didn't expect to blow up and to have millions of views on some of my videos and stuff. And I wasn't ready for it. And at first it was every detractor. I was like, no, you're wrong. Especially because they're talking about facilities and people that I've met and that I love and stuff. And I will defend them. I don't care if you say crap about me, but something that I'm passionate about and people that I care about, I will. So I've had to learn. And, but no, I do think that the transparency angle, I love seeing that.
And I will tell you, we are prepared for detractors, and, my communications team does a great job if we have those negative comments. But in all honesty, we don't have to do a lot because our supporters come to our rescue first.
Right. I've started seeing that.
And that is one of those things that I cannot thank our supporters enough. And it's one thing for a zoo to defend itself to detractors, but when you have, 20, 30% of a population coming out in support of the zoo and against the detractors, that's a powerful weapon. And that's something that I feel that we've built just with our transparency and how we communicate.
Right. And it's not intentional. Y'all didn't set out to we're going to build an army of defenders. Right. But it happens naturally by being transparent and by being a great facility. Yeah. So yeah, I love that. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this stuff.
Of course.
Yeah, really, really love that information. Seeing the elephant calves was incredibly cool, and I'm looking forward to hopefully getting back out there to see it when there are 4 baby elephants. Crazy. So that's it for our births this week, and then that brings us to our deaths. Our first death this week comes from the zoo in my hometown, the Buffalo Zoo. 11-year-old capybara Rosie has passed away. The median life expectancy of a capybara in human care is 8 years, so her age is a testament to the great life she was given at the Buffalo Zoo. I've never had the opportunity to interact with Rosie, but I would always love seeing her in the rainforest building, hanging out in the water, and just kind of being adorable. It turns out that Rosie didn't really like other capybaras, which is why she chose to live her life as a solo one. And she really did choose. They gave her multiple companion options over the years, and she said no. But she had turtles and geese in her habitat that she preferred to hang out with. And it was always cool. She was cappies are watery animals. They are they have partially webbed feet and everything because they're good at being in the water. But Rosie just really seemed to love her water. And it was always cool to see a capybara doing the capybara thing of being in the water. So she is very missed. Spike, the 22-year-old Cape porcupine that called the Topeka Zoo home, has passed away. Spike was born on Valentine's Day, and every year the zoo had a themed birthday party for him, including this year's Taylor Swift Feeling 22 party. And I gotta say it, feeling 22 is a pretty impressive feat for a porcupine that's only expected to live 15 years or so. The St. Louis Zoo has said goodbye to Gabby, a 14-year-old harbor seal. She passed away due to complications of asymptomatic heart disease that arose during a necessary medical procedure. Stories like this are always so scary. It's just the idea of something asymptomatic that suddenly shows up. Always very hard for the public and especially the team that takes care of the animals. So sending all the love to the team at the St. Louis Zoo. And then last but not least this week, ZooMontana has said goodbye to Simpson the gray wolf. Simpson was a ZooMontana star who was found abandoned by his pack at a young age and was eventually taken to ZooMontana. When the zoo noticed that the wolf was clumsy and seemed to have poor eyesight, the vet team stepped in and diagnosed him with congenital hydrocephalus. This is an issue that Simpson faced from birth, and it caused a buildup of fluid on the brain. Once the diagnosis was made, ZooMontana asked the community to help them raise funds for Simpson's needed surgery, and the community truly came together to support their little wolf, both financially and in terms of emotional support. A ventriculoperitoneal shunt was placed in his brain that drained the fluid into his abdomen, and Simpson did a great job recovering. The shunt lasted for a few years, and once it went badly, another one was placed surgically. That's just so cool. This wolf had 2 shunts placed. It's amazing. But unfortunately, despite these incredible efforts, Simpson continued to get worse, and the decision was made to humanely euthanize him. The legacy that this wolf leaves behind is a huge one and serves as a great reminder of how incredible an ambassador any single animal can be for their species, and how one animal can serve to unite a community. And moving on from births and deaths, we get to the rest of our Zoo News section. Okay, so we're going to start with some fun. Holy crap. If you haven't seen this, you need to. There is a viral video of a goose confronting a tiger at the Columbus Zoo, and it goes exactly how you expect it would. But only if you understand how truly evil geese can be. Vera, a 7-year-old female Amur tiger, started chasing the bird around its enclosure, and rather than, fly off like any sane animal would when confronted by one of the deadliest predators in the world, the goose just kept running away, honking, and clearly letting Vera know that the habitat was goose property now. Now, Vera didn't take too kindly to that and eventually trapped the bird and moved in for an attack, but the goose started honking and flapping so fiercely that the tiger jumped back, scared and shocked. I swear you can actually see the letters W, T, and F cross the tiger's lips as the confused kitty's confrontation confounds her. The goose wins the moment, but the tiger does win the war as the goose eventually flies off, but the whole thing is a sight to see. And I'll also use this story to soapbox for a moment and to say that the whole, would 100 people beat a gorilla in a fight, or this percentage of humans think they could take insert animal here in an unarmed fight stuff that is going around on the internet right now, I don't love it. It might seem harmless, and I actually know some conservation organizations are trying to use it to shed light in a good way on the animals they're trying to save. Which, cool, since it's out there, you might as well do that. But I do actually think that things like this do have some pretty serious negative impacts on how some people think about animals. So please consider avoiding these things when you are doing the internet surfing thing and commenting on stuff. I'm just saying, if a goose can go 12 rounds with a tiger, none of those conversations actually make any sense anyway. Tierpark Schönebeck has encountered some seriously evil people who keep entering their donation fountain and stealing their money. And during the last theft, the criminals also broke into some of the animal habitats, stealing and killing multiple animals, including a rare species that the zoo is working to conserve in a collaborative effort with Zoo Amsterdam. I hope the police are able to put this to bed quickly, because this is just simply disgusting behavior. And honestly, I'm having a hard time finding a lot of updates or anything about it. The only stuff that I have found is written in other languages, and Google Translate isn't giving me 100% confidence in what I'm saying. As a matter of fact, between you guys and me, I'm not even sure that it's a donation fountain that's being robbed and not some kind of box or something, but that is what the Translate said for the couple articles I saw. And they do donation fountains. But yeah, anyway, the zoo is getting robbed and having animals killed, and cops need to stop it, is the story. Back to the internet for a minute. Every once in a while, I do a story on here about, something going viral, less because the story is interesting in and of itself, but more because I'm fascinated at how different random things tend to go viral. A clouded leopard cub at Nashville went viral when, they're one of the best cloudy breeding zoos in the country. Pygmy hippos randomly blew up. A tree kangaroo who's flicking off the public gets over 5 million views for Rossifari. It's all just so dang weird. Well, the latest one of these stories to go viral did so in the UK, and it is a job posting. Chester Zoo in the UK recently posted a job looking for a new keeper for their Twilight team, which takes care of capybaras, meerkats, bats, and more. And with the current popularity of cappies, the post went viral. But it's just a normal job posting. There wasn't anything cute or funny or unique about how it was written. The UK press and social media just blew up sharing the job posting because it was suddenly like news to them that you could apply to be a zookeeper and work with capybaras. I don't get it, but hey, anything to get zoos and, the industry in the media in a positive light is a good thing and cool by me. But I just found that so fascinating. And that brings us to Stereotypical Animal Podcast Theme Song. Here to bring you to conservation news. Nepal has announced its first estimate of the current snow leopard population in the country, and it's really good news for the cats. The population is right around 400 individuals, which is a stable population for the region. The population estimate is the most accurate one ever taken of the snow leopards of Nepal because it used new technology like camera traps and genetic analysis of scat samples, whereas all previous studies have focused on just guesses based on tracks and found scat, but they couldn't attribute any of that scat to one specific cat or anything. Scat, cat, cat, scat. Anyway, the advances in conservation technology, along with the prices falling for said technology, are having such a huge impact on conservation and data collection. And it's really cool to see, especially in light of, this kind of being a time where maybe some of that stuff might be disappearing, at least in the United States. But hey, that's happy conservation news, and so is this. The oyster population in the Chesapeake Bay is finally doing well after decades of major decreases due to drought, disease, habitat loss, and overharvesting. This is actually the 5th year in a row the population has been shown to be doing well, which is a testament to the incredible conservation messaging the Bay has received and the efforts made by federal and local governments. Again, strides that hopefully won't be taken completely away by anyone in any particular administration, not to name names. But okay, speaking of that administration, we know that the current administration in the U.S. is doing a whole lot to dismantle environmental protections, and we've talked about that at great length on here. But I saw something this week that really threw me. NOAA actually made a social media post praising a decision that the administration has made, saying that opening up areas of the seafloor to mining will help benefit the USA and specifically domestic manufacturing. And yes, I get it. NOAA is part of the administration and is now being run by people appointed by said administration. But still, it's damn weird to see that kind of post on the social pages of an organization that, before this administration would have been railing against any decision like this. It's just that weird vibe of so far, we've seen a whole lot of protesty stuff or silence from these agencies, but now is the point where we're going to start to see these messages parroted as what the agency believes. And that's challenging. Here's an interesting story looking at some of the competition I've talked about when it comes to conservation and some of the challenges that just being humans that are imperfect create for conservation efforts. And if you want to hear about that idea in great detail, way back in the first season, we did an episode about Panamanian golden frogs and specifically how the organization working to save them in Panama split in half over, personalities and attitudes. And if you haven't heard that one, I highly recommend going back. It really shows how people can be great for conservation, but also how the challenging side of being a human can make conservation more challenging. So anyway, this story though, it's okay. So here's the deal. Save the Frogs recently made a social post because they were very upset that certain other accounts had taken Save the Frogs Day, which is the first and largest day of education and action for amphibians on the planet, inspiring over 2,000 events in over 60 countries since its inception in 2009, which is awesome. But these other places instead posted about, quote, the International Day of Amphibian Conservation, or, quote, World Amphibian Day. And these days don't exist. See, it actually takes an effort and work to get a day recognized by governments and to be made like an official day. But instead of making that effort and putting in the work like Save the Frogs did for Save the Frogs Day, Save the Frogs claims these other places simply glommed onto their day and tried to make it their own thing. It's an ugly look that got some mixed comments from people standing with Save the Frogs and others saying that despite getting the name wrong, having other accounts raise awareness for amphibian conservation was actually a good thing. So what do you guys think? As someone who has had my social stuff used in a variety of ways, I both approve of, but without my permission, and ways I don't approve of, which also shockingly didn't get my approval, I can definitely see both sides to this argument, and I would really love to hear your take on it. Is it okay for other organizations to, change the name of a day and act like it's a thing? Is that okay? Should Save the Frogs be mad, or should they be happy that, amphibian conservation is being shared by these accounts? I have my thoughts. I'm curious what y'all think, though. So, feel free to reach out and let me know. Scientists have discovered a new butterfly species named the curiously isolated hairstreak. The population of butterflies that was discovered is very small and has a high degree of long-term isolation, traits not common amongst butterflies. The animal in question actually looks exactly like another species of butterfly, but has surprisingly unique genetics and ecology. And then last but not least in conservation news, scientists in Japan claim to have developed a plastic that disappears within hours in seawater, and that also boosts soil health when buried. The researchers at the Riken Center in Japan claim that this biodegradable plastic decomposes in soil in just 10 days, as opposed to the centuries it takes most current plastics to decompose. I haven't seen a lot of info about this outside of a puberty post that was sent to me, so I'm taking this with a bit of a grain of salt right now, but it's a hopeful grain of salt, and y'all know I love salt, especially on soft pretzels at zoos.
It's time for other news. It's time for other news. Hey, now, right now, now it's time. It's time for other news. Hey, it's a segue to the part called other news.
A 70-year-old man named Doug Hay was walking along the water in Venice, Florida, when he saw an injured bald eagle in the water, which had some gators in it. The man decided to wade into the water and get the eagle before either of them became gator chow, and after he successfully did so, he took it to land and called a wildlife center in the area, where they took the bird in and created a plan that should lead to a full recovery for the bird. Such a brave move to save an endangered bird, and I am here for it. Thank you for your service, sir. Good job not getting eaten.
Animal, animal, animal holidays. Animal, animal, animal holidays.
All right, y'all. It is May, which is National Duckling Month, National Lake Cleanup Month, and No Mow May. And then for your individual days, May 2nd is World Tuna Day, May 3rd is Wild Koala Day, Leopard Day, and Salamander Saturday. The 4th starts Amphibian Week. And the 5th is Happy Bears Day and Cinco de Rhino. And those are your animal holidays for the week. All right, there you have it, folks. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News is done. I would like to say thank you to Scott Newland for coming on and sharing those two incredible news stories with us. I'd also like to say thank you to all of my Red Panda level patrons, including Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, and Kevin Williams. And of course, I would like to say thank you to everybody who contributed to this week's episode, including Anya Keene, Colleen Lenahan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Dr. Laura Schenk, Maddie Patz. That's what I call Matt Patford sometimes. Becca Robinson, Jacob Zinn, Dr. Natalie Taco, Bethany Frymark, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky, Jay Meredith, Lizard Dunlevy, Dylan Hoy, Ken Tryon, Crystal Chapman, Madeline Weaver, Marianne Rossi, Ann Yoshioka, and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Thank you all so much for contributing to this week's episode. We'll be back on Monday instead of Tuesday this week, and next week, you know what I mean. And until then, remember, friends, the words Newsy Credits Backwards are Steiderk Yiswen.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.
And feeling too...